internet connection periodically says unstable. So it is what it is. Things are different now. We're in isolation.
As long as you're stable.
Very dependent.
As long as you're stable, right?
And the goal of tonight's session is how to keep the emotions in your household stable. This is the third in the series, as Jordan was saying. In the first session, we looked at tone of voice. Many of us don't, as when our tone of voice is needlessly harsh or aggressive or anxious. When does that happen? When there's a problem. I use my hand to say a bump in the road of life. So if you stop and at least notice, oh, my tone of voice isn't right, there must be some kind of problem, and stop and think about it. That was session one. Session number two, we worked on end map. That is, as you're going down the road of life, and you hit a bump, there's 5 possible roads you can take. We focused in that second session on the roads that go to negative places. That is, if you get angry, you go down fight road. If you're prone to get depressed, it means you fold road, gave up on what you wanted. If you just are staying anxious, it means you're staying on freeze road, your thinking's not moving. And if you took the 4th finger route, it means you wanted to escape, you took flight road and you're overeating or drinking, whatever. That's a clicky review. Let's do the piece we didn't do last week, which is the thumb route. That's the good news route. That's the road of solving disagreements and difficulties, issues in a cooperative, positive, creative way. Turns out there's tricks to that. Not tricks, there's strategies, technique, that's a better word. Technique, a kind of a recipe, skills to solving your issues in a cooperative way. That's what we're working on today. Now, in the title, I said, find win-win solutions to disagreements. How-tos, that's the technique, and the secret sauce. Let's begin with the secret sauce. Now, those of you who like cooking, and we'll be talking some about cooking today, know that when you make a sauce, you need at least 2 ingredients. You need flour and you need some kind of liquid or broth of some sort. So similarly, for this secret sauce, you need at least 2 ingredients. Number 1, you need to be in the calm zone. So if you're not consistent about being in the calm zone or bringing yourself back if you've gotten agitated, listen to sessions 1 and 2, or maybe that'll help. Once you're in the calm zone, there's a second task, a paradigm shift. This is a thinking shift. Most of us, I would say many, but I think it's most of us, and that disagreement comes up, we want to get what we want. We want our way. Ooh, let's shift from getting my way, not your way, my way, to, oh, let's get a mutual understanding and find a way that works for both of us. That is, it's a shift from adversarial, we're both sitting on opposite sides of a table and sitting, to collaborative. Oh, we're sitting on the same side of the table with the problem in front of us. Major paradigm shift. Those 2 form the secret sauce that enables you to use the techniques we're going to move forward with now. Calm and collaborative, not adversarial. Okay, it's helpful for you to think back on the last week or so. Maybe close your eyes and allow an image to come up of some strife or situation where you wanted X and someone else wanted Y. Maybe there was an argument, maybe there was just a sense of tension. Notice who you were interacting with. Notice what you wanted. Notice what the other person wanted. Okay. Do you need more time? Raise your hand if you need more time. Let's move forward. Okay, so the main technique we're talking about is what I call the win-win waltz. 3 steps, like a waltz has 3 steps, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Start by, I'm going to give you the names of the 3, and then we're going to take them one by one with an example. Step 1, clarify your initial position, you happen, and what the other person wants to see happen. By the way, this can be a conflict within yourself, what one side of you wants to do and what the other side of you wants to do. Same process. Step 2 in the win-win waltz is to explore the underlying concerns. So let's define those words. A position, the initial thing you want, is usually a plan of action. Underlying concerns are what motivates you to want that particular plan of action. So if I'm thinking, gee, I want some ice cream, that's action. If I look at my underlying concern, it might be, I'm actually kind of hungry and have a yearning for something sweet. Okay, that's an underlying concern. Step 3, create a win-win solution set. Now notice I didn't say solution, I said solution set, because when you're good at the win-win waltz, you come up with plans of action that are multifaceted, not just simple, I'll eat ice cream or I won't eat ice cream, but something more complex. Well, I think I will have ice cream, but I'm going to wait another hour or two until I finish what I'm working on, and then I can relax and have a nice cold scoop of ice cream out under the hot sun. Okay. Initial positions, find your underlying concern, and then you'll be able to find a solution set responsive to all of the concerns. Let's go back and take a look at how that works with an actual example. It's actually a combined example from situations that several people suggested to me would be helpful for them for me to use today. Let's call a couple, Deborah and Ron. Deborah's been in the kitchen, Ron has been in his study. Deborah bursts into Ron's study and says, I have had it. You are doing the cooking from now on. I'm sick of being all the time in the kitchen. I have too much other stuff to do. I have too much. You are going to take over cooking. So how are they going to settle that? They could settle by who's right and who's wrong? No. Who has more power? If Deborah sounds more threatening, maybe she'll win, but we don't want to win over like that. Or maybe they'll decide it by who gives up more easily, who's more generous or less likely to want conflict. Those are the routes we don't want to take. What do we want to do? I want to move from my way, no, my way, no, my way, no, my way, to, oh, let's look at the concerns underlying the suggestions each of us have. Deborah, what are your concerns that motivate you to want to ask Ron, just you do all the cooking? So Deborah blurts out, well, the bottom line is I'm totally overwhelmed. I have this big project at work. I'm trying to work in the other room. The kids are interrupting all the time, so I'm getting less, not more work done, even though I'm under more pressure. I've never liked cooking anyways, and now that we're stuck in the home, you know, all 5 of us, the 3 girls, you and me all together all day, I'm just, it's too much pressure. So then, just a minute, I have a stray something on my screen, okay. And then she thinks for a minute, she says, and besides, I find cooking so unrewarding. No one ever tells me they appreciate what I've cooked. And all I'm doing is telling the kids, get out, I'm trying to cook, let me finish, so we've got to eat. so I have no time to enjoy the kids. Okay, we've made a good start. Hopefully, as Deborah was talking, Ron made a list, maybe actually physically made a list of all her underlying concerns. Still, are we there yet? Certainly not, because we have only half of the scene. So here comes an important technical point. Ron, who's going to be continuing to write down all the concerns, is not going to switch from a her list to a my list. He's going to put all the concerns on one list. That's because her concerns immediately become his concerns, and his concerns immediately become hers. So we want to solve the problem for all the concerns of both of us. Okay, so Ron says, well, I guess my reaction is negative to the idea of me doing the cooking because I don't know a thing about cooking. I can boil an egg, and the family's going to get sick of breakfast, lunch, and dinner all being boiled eggs. That's just not going to work. Also, I'm under pressure at work as well. And look, I actually do more than my share. I'm doing virtually all the housekeeping. I clean the kitchen after we eat. If we look at the actual time, I'm doing as much more than you. Sometimes there's a concern that's a positive concern. We keep it still on the concerns list. So Ron's next concern was, and at the same time, I really want you, Deborah, to be happy and comfortable with our division of labor while we're in this period of time. You know, it's a little different when we both have our jobs and we come home and there's been a housekeeper here and she's started dinner already. That's a whole different ballgame. So I think I'm really open to looking at what we could do differently. Oh, that's a positive concern. It turned out Ron had a deeper concern as he really thought about it. He said, you know, when you said you didn't want to cook anymore, I just felt in shock and sadness, really deep sadness. So this couple will say, knows the technique I call that was then, this is now. So Deborah says sympathetically, think for a minute, what was that sadness about? Ron remembers, when we were growing up, you know my mother, you know, anger, you did this wrong, you did that wrong. She was just a very probably depressed, negative person. The one way in which she really showed us love and affection was through food. And she'd say, Ronnie, I made your favorite whatever. And I would feel so loved. So the thought that you weren't going to be giving me love in the language I've grown up hearing just kind of scared me. Okay, so there are deeper concerns, there are positive concerns, and there are concerns for both people all on one list. Now that we've got this list, where do we go from here? Step 3. Now we can begin with creating a win-win problem set. Now let's pretend they get off to a bad foot, on the wrong foot. Ron says, look, Deborah, why don't you just cook simpler meals? What's the problem here? Can you see what the problem is? Or maybe Deborah says, well, Ron, if you would just, oops. So one of the when you're trying to make a win-win solution, your job is to look at what you could offer, and especially what you could offer that's responsive to the other person's concerns. Your job is not to tell them what to do. Okay, so now Ron and Deborah make a fresh start. Okay, let's look at this again. And then they see so many concerns. There's like 10 concerns on the list. Where do we even start? Technique. Look at the list, and each of you say, for you, what concern rises above all the others as the most important concern? Start there, then back to the solution, to the plan of action, pieces responsive to all the rest of the concerns. Deborah thinks for a minute. And she says, well, the bottom line is I feel terrible about the way I've been with the kids. I thought this time altogether would give us special family time. It's not feeling that way at all. I'm just in the kitchen, or else so exhausted by the time I put the kids to bed that I don't even feel like talking with them or sitting on their bed. It's like too much. So it's the overload that's bothering me in terms of not having time with the kids. Ron looked over his concerns and he realized his single most important concern was he really wanted his wife to be happy. Very touching. On that saying, happy wife, happy life. Okay, that's a solution that is going to enable Deborah to be happy and Deborah to have more time with the children. It's not exaggerating when he said he knew squat of cooking. Got some ideas? Down that situation or think about it. Maybe close your eyes and think for a minute. What could be a multifaceted plan of action? So I'll tell you what our mythical Deborah and Ron came up with. It's by no means the only solution. What this solution illustrates, though, is they didn't argue for, Deborah, you have to keep doing the cooking, or for, no way am I going to do the cooking on Ron's part. Once they started exploring underlying concerns, they left those two initial solution ideas, their initial positions. And now, in an open-minded, creative way, they're looking at some new options. Here's what they come out with. You know what? Ron says, this may be an opportunity for me and the kids some basic living skills. Because you know what? Our kids don't know how to get the house clean either. I mean, they're as spoiled as we are. As had a housekeeper during the day. And I'm pretty overloaded actually with the housework too, like I said. So what if we have cooking and cleaning as fun family activities instead of what we do for the kids and as learning opportunities for the kids? So Deborah says, sounds clever, but I don't know if they'll go for it. So Ron says, let's put on music. Whatever we do, we'll put on music and enthusiastic. So now Deborah's getting into it. And Deborah says, actually, I can think of some really simple recipes that I could teach everyone right at the beginning. Like one of my favorite recipes for dessert is frozen bananas. All the kids do is peel the bananas, chop them into 1-inch chunks, and put them all in a sealed plastic bag into the freezer. Then we could have those for dessert. Oh, Ron liked that idea. And he even said, you know what? That would be a real treat. Maybe we use the frozen bananas as a reward for if everybody, I know, finds the little, when they're cleaning up, if someone finds the piece of paper that says dessert on it, then after that, we get to all go down and have frozen bananas. So what do you see in this? You see that what as a disagreement ends up being a creative, collaborative, upbeat exercise. In addition, Ron remembered, I'm especially struck, Deborah, by what you said about nobody appreciates what you cook. As part of our teaching life skills to the kids, let's make sure at the end of or during every meal, kids really notice the food and comment on it. Oh, this came out so good. I think this recipe needs more salt. Whatever, just so they're really noticing what they're eating and appreciating. And at the same time, we're all learning how to cook and everybody's learning how to keep a house clean. Whole different ballgame. Okay, what's your reaction? Does that sound pie in the sky, or does that sound actually realistic? Now is a time when everybody's at home for trying some new, fun, upbeat, and very collaborative ways of switching things around. Whether it's division of labor in the house, or what to do about money, or how to handle discipline, or what to do when one of you gets angry, all of these are bumps. And for any of these differences, disagreements, make sure you're taking the thumb road. Use thumb and say, wait, let's look together as a team at the problem. We'll put the problem on the table. You're not the problem. I'm not the problem. The problem is the problem. And let's together figure out a whole new way of addressing this. It enables us both to feel good. Win-win solution. Now, as you get toward the end of this kind of problem solving, there's an important question to ask. Ask yourself and the other person, are there any little pieces of this that still feel unfinished? Say it with me. Are there any other pieces of this that still feel unfinished? One more time. Are there any little pieces of this that still feel unfinished? Ron said, there's a part of me that's getting excited about this cooking thing. I think I'd like starting to watch cooking classes on the internet or get simple recipe books or something. Oh, Deborah was happy with that. And Deborah, was there any little pieces of this that still felt unfinished? She thought, I think I have not been appreciating either what you do in the house. So I need to add that to the changes that I'm going to make. Often the thought come up with that final question, are there any little pieces of this that still feel unfinished? Often those are the keys to success of the whole plan of action. Okay, that's the win-win waltz. 3 steps. Look first at the initial against each other, plans of actions, then drop down a level to explore the underlying concerns. Write everyone's concerns on one list. Make sure it's symmetrical, that you have both people's concerns. Then you're ready to start brainstorming on what each of you can do toward a solution. Remember also the secret sauce. You can only be productive when you do this in a calm, friendly, emotional state. And the goal is problem solving together, not fighting or getting your way or who's right, who's wrong. It's together finding a solution that works for both of us. Okay, that's today's talk. Let's see. Well, I did have another thought. I covered a lot of information this session. If it turns out you want to go back and review it, Jordan is wonderful about, not Ron from the case. Jordan is wonderful about putting this up on YouTube, so you could always listen back. And in addition, I've written a book with my daughter, psychologist, and also living here in Israel, The Power of Two workbook. It's based on my earlier book, The Power of Two. The advantage to a workbook is you can do the exercises. It's really fill in the answers. And it's one thing to understand a new pattern. It's another thing to visualize yourself actually doing it. So that's what the workbook is for. Abigail and her brothers also have made a website called poweroftwomarriage.com. We wanted powerof2.com, but it turned out to be a Christian rock group. So we have powerof2message.com. That has lots of information. It's interactive, it's fun, it's upbeat. Third, if you just Google conflict resolution, that should take you to other articles, mostly on psychology today, that I've written that reiterate the same information we talked about today. So, a pleasure to see you all here. I hope this has been helpful, and I'm open for questions.
So great. That was a great follow-up. It was just really building on one session after the other, really kind of building up and such relevant topics, really, really relevant topics. And I'm going to actually allow everybody, right now I think everybody's muted, but you can, if you'd like, you can unmute yourself and ask any questions, or you can use the text chat as well. Yeah, so feel free to chime in right here. We do have a question. I don't know if you can see Dr. Heitler, the text on there. If not, I can read
No,
it
I
to
couldn't.
you.
Let me see. I can do something to make it visible. I'm sorry, could you put it back up?
You might need to scroll up. If not, I could read it to you.
Yes, can you read it to me, please?
Yeah. So we have a question. How do you deal with someone who is unilateral in approach and not cooperative or collaborative?
That's a tough one. This is like a dance. It takes two to tango. So one approach is to say, look, I'd like to step back and not discuss with you the areas that we have differences. I'll make a list of them, and you're welcome to make a list of them also. At some point, I'd like to sit down with you and see if we can find solutions. First, though, I think I'd like to agree with you on some ground rules for how to do it. And I would be so appreciative if you would listen to these lectures or read these articles or take a look at the book. It's really, really important to me. I love much to be a happy place. And right now, for me at least, it's not. One other hint on that. If you say to someone, I'm angry at the way you are so unilateral, number one, that's criticism. Number two, anger is very off-putting and scaring for people. So if you're going to approach this, talk about yourself, not the other person. I would really like to. That's a good sentence starter. Or I'm feeling, but not really, something more vulnerable. I've been feeling really sad lately. I'm feeling discouraged. Something that will engender empathy rather than defensiveness. So that's a start. That question was a great question, though, because it told me what I'll talk about for the next session. 6 sentence starters. For difficult discussions. Any other questions? Thank you so much for that question.
I want to sort of add on that because I think that's a great question. And I think one thing that happens a lot of times with couples is that when you're dealing with a partner who you feel is angry or doing behavior that you don't like, or the household doesn't, the other person will sometimes feel like, why are you trying to change me? You don't love me, or you don't accept me for the way I am. And they think these attempts might be attempts to try to change them, or because they're not being accepted for who they are, or me misread their emotions.
So Jordan, that reminds me, the second strategy for someone who is unilateral and isn't going to shift. Some people are just more rigid. They have their way and they're not going to bend, they're not going to change. It is what it is. Mm-hmm. In that case, sometimes it's better to accept, okay, that's how that person is. Mm-hmm. I'd still rather have a person in my life than be alone. So I'm going to do what I need to do and just work around it. Not the answer I like to see, and sometimes more realistic than trying, because what doesn't work is trying to get the other person to change. So that gives me a third answer to your question. Keep looking at what could I do differently instead of trying to get the unilateral, quick to anger person to change. What can I do differently so this situation more nicely? Any other questions? Thank you all so much for joining me tonight and tonight here, this morning back in the States. And good luck with keeping your families harmonious problem solvers.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, everybody, for joining. And I just posted it again. I just reposted the link to the replays of this series, which will include this one as soon as it gets uploaded, but the other two are on that link already.
And Jordan, I had one other option for people. If a question has come up and you weren't comfortable writing it in now, can people still hear me? Yes?
I can hear you, so I think everybody else can hear you.
Can they hear me?
Yeah,
Okay.
they should be able to hear you.
So I have a website called, at my website, therapyhelp.com, therapyhelp, H-E-L-P.com. There's a contact us form. And if you write your question in on that, that comes to me by email. I'd be delighted to see if I can offer some suggestions.
I'm posting that website as well in the chat, therapyhelp.com.
And I'm just here. So I'm not working currently, and I'm glad to receive questions.
Great. So if anybody else has any other further questions, if not, then we'll conclude the call, and we have another session for number 4, which will be same time next week on Monday, at 7:30 p.m. Israel, which is 12:30 Eastern Standard Time. Next Monday, that would be April, I'm on calendar, here it is. That would be April, I know everybody's knows the answer to that already. The 20th, yeah, so April 20th. So mark your calendars, but I'll be sending out a nudgy reminder, making sure that you are well aware of it. And also, we live stream this on Facebook too, if that's more convenient. So wishing you all a pleasant evening and stay healthy and sane, and looking forward to seeing you soon. And thank you, Dr. Heitler.